Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Mark, and as always, I'm joined by the ever-curious Jenny.
Hello, hello. Always excited to explore something new with you, Mark. And today, we're diving into the slightly less glamorous but super important world of jobless claims. Don't click away, people. I promise this is interesting.
She's right. It's more than just numbers. It's about people, the economy, the whole shebang. And the recent data has been, well, a bit of a roller coaster, wouldn't you say, Jenny?
A roller coaster is one way to put it. We've seen these numbers going up, then down, then kind of sideways. It's hard to keep track, but basically, fewer people are asterisk initially times filing for unemployment, which times good, right?
Right. Generally, fewer claims mean fewer layoffs, which suggests companies are holding on to their workers. But, and this is a big but, there's this fluctuation. Like in February, claims jumped up. We're talking 242,000. But then in early March, they dipped back down to 221,000. So it's not a smooth ride.
Okay, so what's causing that jumpiness? Is it just random noise? Or is something bigger going on?
That's the million-dollar question. There are a few things at play. Some of it is seasonal adjustments. You know, certain industries have predictable hiring and firing patterns. But there are also these, let's call them one-off events, like government workforce adjustments. Those can temporarily skew the numbers.
Government workforce adjustments. Meaning what, exactly? Layoffs in the public sector?
Not necessarily layoffs, though that can happen. It's more about shifts in how the government categorizes and reports employment. Think reclassifications, program changes. Things that affect the times numbers but don't always reflect the reality times on the ground for most workers.
So the numbers might wiggle around a bit. But the overall picture, the trend times trend, is what we should really be paying attention to?
Exactly. And the overall trend, despite these blips, is that the labor market is surprisingly sturdy. We're seeing the unemployment rate sticking around 4%, which, historically, is pretty low.
Okay, 4%? That sounds good in theory, but what does that feel like for the average person? Are people finding jobs easily? Are they feeling secure?
That's where it gets interesting. It's not uniform across the board. Some sectors are booming. Healthcare, for example, is adding jobs like crazy. We're talking tens of thousands of new jobs in just a month.
Healthcare, I get that. Aging population, more demand for services makes sense. But what about other industries?
Well, retail is also doing pretty well, probably thanks to the ongoing shift to online shopping. But then you have sectors like manufacturing. They're struggling. We're seeing job times losses.
Manufacturing? Is that the automation effect we always hear about? Robots taking our jobs?
It's definitely a factor. Automation, plus global competition, is putting a lot of pressure on those industries. It's tough for workers in those fields.
So we've got this mixed bag. Some sectors thriving, others struggling. How does that all balance out in the big picture of the labor market?
That's where economists like Corey Stahl and Julia Polak come in. They're basically saying, look, despite these ups and downs, the labor market is showing resilience. It's adapting.
Resilience. I like that. It's like the economy is flexing its muscles, even with some growing pains, maybe?
Exactly. And part of that resilience is tied to, you guessed it, unemployment insurance. That safety net is crucial for people who times lose their jobs, especially in those struggling sectors.
Okay, let's talk about that safety net. Because I think a lot of people don't really understand how unemployment insurance works. It's not just free money, right?
Not at all. It's a program, funded by taxes, that provides temporary financial assistance to people who lose their jobs, through no fault of their own. That's a key point.
And it varies from state to state, right? Like, the amount you get, how long you can get it. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Precisely. Each state has its own rules, its own eligibility requirements, its own benefit levels. It can be a real maze to navigate.
So if you lose your job in, say, California, your experience might be very different from someone who loses their job in Texas.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to understand the specifics of your state's program before times you need it, if possible.
Okay, good advice. So, we've established that the labor market is resilient but complicated. What about the future? Any predictions, oh wise tech guru?
Well, the projections I've seen suggest that jobless claims might continue to trend time downward, maybe even reaching 190,000 to 210,000 in the next couple of years.
That sounds optimistic. But is there a catch?
There's always a but, isn't there? A lot depends on inflation. The Federal Reserve is basically saying, we won't cut interest rates until inflation stabilizes.
Ah, the dreaded inflation. So if inflation stays high, that could put a damper on job growth, even if jobless claims are low?
Exactly. It's this interconnected web of economic factors. It's never just one thing.
And I suppose there's also a bit of an ethical consideration. A debate of if unemployment discourages people to find work.
That is true. There's studies to show both sides of the story. It's important people are supported, but that they are motivated to re-enter the job force quickly.
It's fascinating how this seemingly dry topic, jobless claims, actually touches on so many aspects of our lives. The economy, government policy, individual industries, even our own sense of security.
That's what I love about it. It's a window into the bigger picture. And it reminds us that even these seemingly small numbers have real-world consequences for real people.
Well said, Mark. So the takeaway is, stay informed, understand the trends, and maybe brush up on your state's unemployment insurance rules, just in case.
Excellent advice, Jenny. And as always, thanks for exploring this with me.
The pleasure was all mine, Mark. Until next time, everyone.